When my husband, Arthur Vance, CEO of Horizon Tech, announced the list of employees for salary optimization. I, responsible for 70% of the company's revenue, saw my own name on it. 10 minutes later, I submitted my resignation. As I left, I overheard Arthur talking to someone on the phone. "She's just being dramatic," he said. "I'll have her back in 3 months." 3 days after I left, he stormed into HR in a fury. When Arthur Vance announced the optimization list, my name was right at the top. A hush fell over the conference room, broken only by the hum of the air conditioning. On the big screen, the phased optimization plan for executive compensation flashed. And beneath that heading, on the very first line, my name, Vera Vance, Head of Strategic Accounts. 40% salary reduction. Bonus payments suspended. My hand was still resting on my laptop keyboard. 10 minutes ago, I had sent Arthur the forecast for renewing contracts with our 3 biggest clients for the summer quarter. These 3 contracts accounted for up to 70% of Horizon Tech's annual cash flow. And 10 minutes later, I was the first on the optimization list. Arthur stood at the head of the long table. His suit was perfectly pressed, his voice even. "The company is undergoing restructuring right now. Senior management needs to set an example. I hope for the understanding of those on this list." He didn't look at me. Or rather, he deliberately avoided my gaze. Kira Bell, his new personal assistant, seated to his right, quietly raised her head and whispered, "Arthur, isn't this too sudden? Vera manages so many projects. She might get upset." She had only been with the company for a week. Her desk was next to my department, but she knew nothing about clients or contracts. Yet, she was already sitting in senior management meetings. Arthur glanced at her, and his voice softened. "At this company, we value overall strategy, not just who works the hardest." After those words, someone in the room coughed. I saw the change in Paul Miller, the head of sales, whom I had personally mentored. He knew that last month, during negotiations with international partners, I had slept only 8 hours in 3 days. He also knew that the company had only survived the previous year because I brought back 3 clients who were on the verge of leaving. But no one said a word. Because Arthur Vance, the CEO and my husband of 5 years, had spoken. I lowered my eyes and opened the optimization notice that had arrived in my inbox. Sender HR department. Copied Arthur, the CFO, and the board of directors. Sent at Nu 27. He had signed this even before the meeting began. I downloaded the email and, along with a screenshot of the screen, saved it to my personal cloud storage. I did it so quietly that no one noticed. Kira continued. "Actually, I can cut my salary a bit too. I just started. And I don't want Vera to bear this burden alone." Her voice was soft, her words pretty. But I saw the seating chart lying in front of her. It clearly stated that the first, second, and third groups of strategic clients were to be gradually transferred to Kira Bell's project team over the next 3 months. So, this wasn't just about a salary cut. He was going to gradually transfer my clients, my team, and my budget to her. I suddenly found it amusing. In the company's founding year, Arthur, with a business plan no one believed in, sat on the floor of our rented apartment and told me, "Vera, when Horizon Tech gets on its feet, I'll put you in the brightest spot." I believed him. I accompanied him to investor meetings, traveled with him to clients, sat in negotiation rooms where we were grilled until 2 a.m. Then the company truly got on its feet. But the brightest spot went to Kira, and I was put on the optimization list to make room for her. Arthur finally turned to me. "Vera, you're a company veteran. You should understand the bigger picture." The bigger picture. I'd heard those words too often. Kira just started. She doesn't understand things. You need to help her. That's the bigger picture. Mom likes Kira. Don't worry about it. That's the bigger picture. On my birthday, he drove to the airport to pick up Kira, saying she had just returned to the country and didn't know anyone here. That was also the bigger picture. Now, I, who generated 70% of the revenue, had to step aside for her. And again, it was for the bigger picture. I slammed my laptop shut. The sound wasn't loud, but everyone at the table turned to me. Arthur frowned. The meeting isn't over yet. I stood up and pushed my chair in. My part is. Kira flinched, and her eyes immediately reddened. Vera. Please don't misunderstand. Arthur didn't mean that. If you're unhappy, I can talk to HR. No need. I looked at her. You didn't sign this list. Kira's face paled. Arthur finally raised his voice. Vera Vance. We're at the company. I know. I picked up my phone and showed the email I had just saved. That's why I'm acting according to company procedures. With that, I turned and walked out of the conference room. Behind me, someone gasped. Arthur called my name. Vera Vance. I didn't look back. The hallway was long. And my reflection. Tearless. Hysterical-free. Even calmer than at the start of the meeting. Appeared in the glass walls. The receptionist, seeing me, immediately stood up. Vera. Mr. Davidson is in HR. I nodded and headed straight there. My phone vibrated. A message from Arthur. Don't make a scene. Save face at the meeting. I looked at the words. Paused for a few seconds. Then screenshotted and saved it. He still thought I was making a scene. The HR office door was ajar. Mr. Davidson, the head of the department, looked up. And seeing me, was surprised at first. Then seemed to understand and stood. Vera. I placed my phone with the optimization notice in front of him. Process my resignation right now. Mr. Davidson froze. Now he looked at me and lowered his voice. Does Arthur know? I smirked. He personally informed me 10 minutes ago that the company values overall strategy, not just who works the hardest. Mr. Davidson remained silent. He had worked in HR for 6 years and had seen me finalize presentations at 3 a.m. and Arthur, at success banquets, raise the first toast to investors, forgetting to introduce me, standing next to him. He opened the system. His fingers hovered over the keyboard. Vera. You're a key employee. According to regulations, the handover should take a month. I pushed a pre-prepared folder towards him. All project statuses. Client contact. K. Contract dates. Risk notes. I updated everything last night. The recipient can sign it now. Mr. Davidson looked up in surprise. I calmly said, I always document everything. He finally understood that this wasn't a momentary impulse. 10 minutes later, the resignation letter was generated. I signed, confirmed, and sent it. The system displayed a notification process submitted for approval. At that very moment, hurried footsteps were heard from the conference room. Arthur had arrived. He stopped at the HR doorway. His face was displeased. Vera Vance. Come out. I didn't move. If you have something to say, say it here. Mr. Davidson lowered his head, pretending to look at his computer. Arthur, suppressing his anger, said, Do you even realize what you're doing? I do. I looked at him. I'm resigning because of the optimization list. No. I picked up a pen from the desk and signed the last page of the handover document. Because I finally realized that in your hierarchy of values, I will always come after the bigger picture. He frowned even more. Kira just joined the company. She doesn't understand anything. She's just being dramatic. I'll give you everything back in 3 months. Why blow this up into a scandal now? Several passing employees stopped at the door. Kira also rushed over and stood behind Arthur. Her eyes moist. I looked at Arthur. And any desire to explain anything vanished. Apparently. In his eyes. My demotion. The stripping of my team. And public humiliation were just Kira's dramatics. And his compensation was to give me back what was already mine in 3 months. I capped the pen. Arthur Vance. The procedure is complete. Arthur's face changed. What did you call me? I picked up my phone and bag and walked past him. At the company. Arthur Vance. Of course. I stopped at the door. As for home. We'll talk tonight. I didn't look at his face. But I heard Kira quietly say behind me. Arthur. I think I caused you trouble. Arthur didn't answer. The elevator doors opened. I stepped in. In the mirror. I saw my wedding ring on my ringfinger. I had worn it for 5 years. Engraved inside was the phrase, "Together in the same boat." I looked at it for a few seconds. Then took it off and put it in the farthest pocket of my bag. The elevator doors slowly closed. This time, I wasn't defending anyone for the sake of the bigger picture anymore. When the elevator reached the ground floor, my phone was buzzing with calls. The first call from Arthur. The second again from Arthur. The third from Kira. I didn't answer any of them. The receptionist, seeing me, blushed. Vera. Are you really leaving? I took off my ID badge and placed it on the counter. Yes. She opened her mouth as if to say something, but didn't know where to start. The older employees at Horizon Tech knew that I wasn't just the boss's wife. Arthur and I painted the company's first office and assembled furniture together. I waited outside a client's office for 3 days, to get him to agree to 10 minutes of his time. When we first faced a cash flow crisis, I sold my pre-marriage apartment to pay employee salaries for 2 months in advance. This wasn't written in any orders. So, today, only my name was on the optimization list. I was already approaching the revolving door when hurried footsteps sounded behind me. Vera Vance. Arthur caught up to me. Kira ran after him, holding some documents, looking confused and innocent. Many employees in the lobby turned around. Arthur lowered his voice. Do you really want to make such an ugly scene at the company? I stopped. I'm not the one looking ugly. Kira immediately stepped forward. Vera. Please don't misunderstand. I really didn't. I know about that list. I just joined the company. I don't understand anything. Arthur just wanted me to adapt faster. Not take anything from you. What? I looked at her. Then what's that client handover document you're holding? Kira's face froze. She instinctively hid the documents behind her back. Arthur frowned. That's just temporary coordination. Coordination that requires transferring my client groups, budgets, and contract approval rights into her name. The lobby grew even quieter. Annoyance finally appeared on Arthur's face. When did you become so sarcastic? I quietly laughed. That phrase sobered me up more than the optimization list. So, when I stop putting up with things, I become sarcastic. When I ask for facts, I make him lose face. I took out a printed list of transferred tasks from my bag. Arthur Vance. All project materials have been sent to HR and your email. CLI Communication Protocol. Key contract dates. Risks. Unpaid. Invoices. Everything is archived according to company regulations. Arthur froze. He apparently didn't expect me to not just storm out, but to leave him no chance to blame me for an error. You prepared in advance. Not in advance. I placed the list on the reception desk. I just never let other people's screw-ups get pinned on me. Kira's eyes reddened even more. Vera. You probably think that since my return, Arthur has been too protective of me. But we've just known each other since childhood. He always respected you very much. Respected? I looked at Arthur. His respect is shown by me finding out about my demotion at a senior management meeting. And not from him personally. Even a minute before Arthur's face darkened. I was going to explain everything to you after the meeting. Explain. What? I looked at him. Explain that Kira is being dramatic. And so I need to make way for her. Explain that in 3 months, you'll give me back what's mine. And I should be grateful. At these words, Kira's expression completely froze. Because those were the exact words Arthur had just said in HR. The employees' gazes shifted. Some looked down at their phones. Some looked at Kira. Some looked at Arthur. Arthur's jaw tightened. Vera Vance. That's enough. Enough. I nodded. I think so too. I turned to leave. Arthur grabbed my wrist. His grip wasn't strong, but it carried a familiar command. For the past 5 years, when he took my hand like that, I always stopped at business dinners. At the dinner table. At his parents' house. In moments when I wanted to defend myself. He would grab me. And I would tolerate it for him. Today, I didn't stop. I looked down at his hand. Let go. Arthur froze. Vera, I said. Let go. My voice wasn't loud. But the entire lobby heard it. Kira quietly gasped. Arthur finally loosened his fingers. A faint red mark remained on my wrist. I took a wet wipe from my bag and wiped the spot. As if erasing a final habit. Arthur. Until today. I was your wife and a department head in your company. As of today. At least the second status is nullified. He looked at me. Do you think clients will leave with you? I don't think so. I put away the wipe. But I do know that clients won't work long with a company that so easily sacrifices its key executives. Arthur sneered coldly. You think too highly of yourself. Perhaps. I nodded. With that, I walked out of the building. A warm spring breeze blew. My driver, Ben, caught up to me, holding my spare water bottle. Vera. Your bottle. I took it. Thanks. He hesitated for a long time and quietly said. Vera. Everyone knows you've been wronged. I shook my head. Resentment is useless. I looked at the glass facade of the office building. Now. It's every man for himself. My phone vibrated again. This time, a system message. Your resignation has been submitted and is awaiting approval from the CEO. I looked at that line and immediately forwarded it to Mr. Davidson with the comment. According to my employment contract, I am entitled to immediate termination by mutual agreement. All handover documents have been provided. Please calculate my unused vacation, bonuses, and options according to regulations and provide written confirmation. Mr. Davidson quickly replied, understood. Vera. I got into the car, opened my laptop, and once again, backed up all personal files from the corporate cloud. All these years, Arthur called me his stabilizing anchor. But even anchors get tired. Midway, Arthur called again. I hung up. He sent un message. We'll talk tonight at home. I looked at it for a long time and replied with 4 words. Yes. We need to clarify everything. Then I opened a marketplace app and ordered 10 large cardboard boxes. Not to move things out of the office, but to move out of our home. At 7 p.m. I returned to our apartment. The lock recognized my fingerprint and clicked softly. Arthur and I bought this house in our 2nd year of marriage. I designed the interior. I chose the living room chandelier. Even the key tray in the entryway. I brought back from a business trip. But today, standing at the door, I felt like this place had become alien. Like a display showroom. Arthur wasn't home yet. He probably thought I would. As usual. Prepare dinner and wait for him in the living room to hear his explanation. And another. You're too sensitive. I didn't turn on the living room lights. I went straight to the study and opened the safe. Inside were 3 types of documents. First, my personal documents, my pre-marriage property deed and bank statements. From selling my apartment for the company's needs. Second, documents related to Horizon Tech's early loans and the agreement releasing me from my guarantor obligations. Third, records of my ownership of key company projects over all these years. I hadn't prepared this. Today. I came from a business background and knew that the most unreliable thing in the world was verbal promises. Arthur once said, "We're family. Why do we need to calculate everything so meticulously?" I smiled then and replied, "To avoid misunderstandings later." He didn't like it. But I still kept these papers. Not to protect myself from him, but so that one day, I wouldn't be in a situation where I couldn't even prove what I had invested. I was putting documents into a box when my phone lit up. A friend request from Kira. The note read, "Vera. I'm sorry. I truly didn't mean to affect your relationship with Arthur." I glanced at it and declined. The next second, she sent an SMS. "Vera. I know you don't like me. But Arthur has been so tired these past few years. He says that only with me can he not be a CEO all the time. You're his wife and, more than anyone else, should want things to be easier for him." Right. I stared at the message and didn't move for a long time. Turns out, she wasn't just targeting the company, she was targeting my marriage too. Telling me that she was the one with whom Arthur could relax. I screenshotted it and continued packing. At op 3:00. The door opened. Arthur walked in, bringing with him the cool night air. He saw the boxes at the study entrance and stopped. "What are you doing?" I sealed the last document box. "Moving out." His face changed. "Vera Vance. I can attribute the resignation to your impulsiveness. But moving out, what does that mean?" "It means what it means." He walked in and saw the half-empty safe. His voice became harsh. "You're even taking home documents." "My personal documents." "Of course. I'm taking them." Arthur looked at me as if seeing me for the first time. "Do you really want to take everything to such an extreme?" I turned to him. "What extreme?" "When you put me on the optimization list, did you think about extremes? When you put Kira in my department to take my clients, did you think about extremes?" He rubbed the bridge of his nose. "I told you. Kira just started. She needs a chance. You're a strong professional. A temporary retreat won't hurt you." I laughed. "Well, I've retreated. You know I didn't mean that." "I do." I pushed the box towards the exit. "You meant that I should retreat. But not really leave, step aside. But continue to cover everyone's back. Agree to a pay cut. But not get upset. Be replaced. But also teach my replacement how to firmly take my place." Arthur was silent. Because I had hit a nerve. After a few seconds, he softened his tone. "Vera. We've been married for 5 years. Don't throw away everything we had because of work issues." "Work issues?" I took out my phone and showed him Kira's SMS. "She's writing to me that only with her can you not be the CEO all the time. Is this also a work issue?" Arthur saw the message and frowned. "She didn't mean that. You didn't even ask her. But you already know what she meant." My voice was quiet. "Arthur. You defend her so practiced and habitually." A flicker of irritation crossed his eyes. "Kira had family problems. She's had a tough time all these years. And I had it easy." Silence fell in the study for a moment. I looked at him. The toughest year for the company. I was traveling to 4 cities a day. Ended up in the hospital with acute gastritis. And the next day, pulled out my IV to go sign a contract. Your mother criticized me for not being like a wife. Always traveling. And I didn't say a word to her. You got drunk. Threw up on me. I took care of you until morning. And then went to a client meeting. Arthur. Was that easy for me? He moved his lips. But said nothing. I knew he remembered all of it. He had just gotten used to it. Used to me not complaining. Not crying out in pain. Not fighting for myself. So, as soon as Kira returned, all she had to do was get teary-eyed. And he immediately decided she needed protecting. And I could always put up with a little more. Arthur stepped towards me. trying to take my hand. I dodged him. His hand froze in the air. Vera. Don't be like this. Like what? Not talking to you, like a negotiation, I asked. Cry and beg you not to cut my salary. Not to give my clients to Kira. Not to put her in my place. He was silent. I placed the small box with my wedding ring on the table. I took off the ring. Arthur's face instantly changed. Vera Vance's resignation is a work decision. Moving out is a domestic one. What about the marriage? We can follow the official procedure. He looked as if he'd been struck by lightning. You want a divorce? I'm considering it. Because of Kira, I looked at him and suddenly realized he really didn't understand anything. Not because of Kira, I said, enunciating each word. But because when you had to choose between me and her. You never chose me. The doorbell rang, the movers had arrived. 2 men entered and, sensing the tense atmosphere, worked very quietly. Arthur stood in the doorway of the study, watching me carry out one box after another. He no longer stopped me. Only at the very end did he suddenly ask. Where are you going tonight? To a hotel. I'll drive you. No need. I picked up my bag and headed for the exit. Our slippers used to sit here. Now mine were already in a box. Arthur followed. His voice was much quieter. Vera? Leave. But don't turn off your location sharing. I'll worry. I took out my phone and, in front of him, disabled location sharing. From today. You don't need to know where I am. His face paled. I opened the door. Behind me. He finally shouted. You really don't feel bad? I didn't turn around. I feel bad about a lot of things. I paused. But I can't keep not feeling bad for myself. At the moment, the door closed. I heard something crash to the floor. In the apartment. Maybe the ring box. Or maybe Arthur's belated panic. But that was no longer my mess to clean up. The next morning at 9 a.m. Kira sat in my office. Paul sent me this photo. In the picture, she was in a milky white suit, sitting in my former chair. On the desk was a cup of hot latte and a bouquet of pink roses. The caption was short. Vera. She told the administrator to throw out your ficus. I stared at the photo for a few seconds and didn't reply. My team gave me that ficus when the company survived its first year. It moved with me from a small 10-square-foot cubicle to this spacious office. Its leaves were lush. Kira, sitting in my chair on her first day, threw it out. Very much her style. To take someone's place, you first have to destroy all traces of their presence. At 7 a.m. a video conference with Mr. Thompson began. He was one of Horizon Tech's biggest clients and had been my client for 4 years. I was supposed to lead this meeting. The topic: contract renewal for supply chain digitalization for the second half of the year. Before resigning, I archived all meeting materials. Paul said that if Kira just followed the plan, no major mistakes would occur. But, at Sepala's 20, Paul wrote again, Vera. Kira changed the commercial proposal. I sent him a question mark. Paul sent a screenshot. Kira changed the phase delivery scheme to a single package and reduced the service cost by 30%. This wasn't a price reduction, it was laying the groundwork for all possible future risks. The client appeared to benefit in the short term, but the company would incur losses in the long term. And the development team simply wouldn't be able to handle such a volume of work. No sooner had I read this than Mr. Thompson himself called. I answered Mr. Thompson. His voice was controlled and angry. Vera? Do you still represent Horizon Tech? I paused for a second. I resigned yesterday. Silence fell on the other end of the line. Then he sneered coldly. No wonder. Your Ms. Bell just informed me that she's now in charge of the project. She couldn't even explain why we divided the first phase of the system into 3 modules. But she claimed she could lower the price as a sign of respect for us as an old client. I didn't comment on Kira's actions. Mr. Thompson. According to regulations, they should have received my handover documents. Whether I saw those documents or not doesn't matter. Mr. Thompson said. I want to know who will be responsible if problems arise with the project. This is a key question. I can no longer vouch for Horizon Tech. Mr. Thompson. I've resigned and cannot make any promises on behalf of the company. You need written confirmation from the responsible party. Understood. Okay. Mr. Thompson said. Before hanging up, he softened his tone. Vera. If there's a chance, let's talk separately. I didn't agree immediately. Just said. Thank you for your trust. Mr. Thompson. After the call, I opened my computer and created a new folder titled, Post-Resignation, Boundaries of Responsibility. The first file was a written record of the conversation I just had. I sent Mr. Thompson an email. The content was simple confirmation that as of a certain date, I had begun the resignation process and no longer represented Horizon Tech in any negotiations. Contracts. Obligation. I also copied this email to Horizon Tech's general project inbox. 15 minutes later, Arthur called. I answered. He immediately started with accusations. What's that email you sent, Mr. Thompson? What's written there? You know how much he trusts you. If you write like that, what will he think of the company? My voice was even. He'll know the boundaries of responsibility. Arthur controlled his anger. Vera. Leave. But don't sabotage us. Arthur. I'm not sabotaging anyone. Silence fell on the other end of the line. I continued. Before changing the proposal, did Kira even look at the implementation reports from the first phase? Did she ask the technical team about the cost? Did she clarify the client's hidden needs? He irritably replied. She just took over. It's normal for her not to understand everything. Couldn't you have just quietly advised her? Advised. Whom, Kira? I sneered. Arthur. You first demote me. They hand over my clients to her. And now you want me to privately teach her not to make mistakes. Doesn't that seem absurd to you? He darkened. Vera Vance. Can you stop being so sarcastic in every sentence? I am being very restrained. If I weren't, I would immediately inform Mr. Thompson that this proposal carries obvious implementation risks. Arthur fell silent. He knew I was telling the truth. After a few seconds, he changed his tone. Come home tonight. We need to talk properly. I won't. Then I'll come to you. No need. He seemed to clench his teeth. Which hotel are you at? I looked at my already disabled location sharing. That's none of your business. He hung up. During the day, Paul informed me that the video conference with Mr. Thompson ended early. Kira cried at the meeting. The reason, Mr. Wine. Thompson asked her 3 questions. Why was the first phase of the system launched 2 weeks late? Why couldn't internal client access levels be combined? And why couldn't the maintenance cost for the second phase be reduced 10%? Kira couldn't answer any of them. In the end, Arthur personally intervened to save the situation. But, Mr. Thompson only said one sentence. Arthur Vance. I'm not here to train your new hires. That phrase spread throughout the Strategic Accounts Department. At 4 p.m. Peter, my former subordinate, called me. His voice was quiet. Vera. There's complete chaos in the team right now. What happened? Kira is demanding that we give her access to all client files, including your personal negotiation notes. We're refusing. She says it's Arthur's order. I froze. My personal notes contained a lot of confidential, but not secret, information based on trust. Clients' family members' illnesses. Executives' preferences. Moments when pressure shouldn't be applied. Some notoriously difficult director who hated Friday meetings. I had painstakingly collected these details. They weren't toys Kira could use to prove her worth. Peter. According to company regulations, You only transfer official archived files. Personal notes are not part of the handover obligations. Peter breathed a sigh of relief. Understood. He paused and added. Vera. You really aren't coming back. I looked out the window. Outside the hotel window. Cars moved in a continuous stream. People bustled about. No one dies if someone leaves. Peter. Don't put your hopes on someone who has already left. You must protect your professional boundaries. He was silent for a long time. Understood. After the call, I received a message from Arthur. Kira was brought to tears by a client today. Are you happy? I looked at the screen. My fingers hovering for a few seconds. Then I replied. Client questions are not bullying. The problem is when you can't answer them. He didn't write back. At 9 p.m. Kira posted on social media. A photo of pink roses on her office desk. The text. Some posts carry a lot of responsibility. But I will try not to let down those who believe in me. I saw that Paul had liked it. Not as a sign of approval. But to screenshot it and send it to me. I replied to him, don't pay attention to it. Document everything you do. Paul sent an emoji that was both laughing and crying. 10 minutes later. Sarah. A financial manager I used to work with closely. Sent me a screenshot of a budget. Kira's special budget for client relations was urgently increased by $80. 000. Approver Arthur Vance. Purpose, client relationship restoration. Brand d'image. Maintenance. Special entertainment expenses. I looked at that line and finally understood what Kira was planning. She couldn't handle the projects. So she was going to throw money at everything. And this money was originally intended for my team's project budget for the next quarter. I saved the screenshot. Sarah wrote Vera. I don't know if this counts as proof. But I think you should know. I replied. It does. Thank you. That night, I prepared 3 sets of documents. The optimization list. The client transfer agreement. The protocol for Kira's budget change. Individually. All of this looked like internal management decisions. But together, they formed a clear picture. Arthur wasn't acting impulsively. He had planned everything long ago. I was supposed to yield. And Kira was to rise. He just didn't expect me to actually leave. On the 3rd day, a scandal erupted at Horizon Tech. First, Mr. Thompson's company sent an official letter suspending the project. The wording was restrained. Due to significant changes in the project lead and implementation plan, it is necessary to re-evaluate the risks of cooperation. Then 2 other long-standing clients also demanded to suspend negotiations for contract renewals. The reasons were similar: change of responsible person, instability of proposals, implementation risks. Arthur didn't tell me this. Paul did. He said the entire strategic accounts department seemed to have hit pause. Kira had been sitting in Arthur's office since morning and hadn't come out. Several project managers were arguing hoarsely in a meeting room. I didn't gloat. I just opened my calendar and looked at the date. 3 days. Arthur once said that clients wouldn't leave with me. Now, clients hadn't left with me. They had simply paused to understand who was responsible for their money and risks. At 7:40 a.m. Mr. Davidson from HR texted me Vera. Arthur Vance just came to HR. Immediately after, another message arrived. He's demanding you withdraw your resignation. I looked at the message and didn't reply. Less than a minute later, Arthur called. I started recording the conversation. Warning him. Arthur. I'm recording our conversation. He was clearly flustered. What do you mean? In the sense of protecting boundaries. He took a deep breath. Vera. Vance. Come back. That's not a request. It's an order. I leaned back in my chair. As what head of strategic accounts? Will my salary be reinstated? Yes. Will my team's authority be restored? Yes. Will Kira be removed from the project? Silence fell on the other end of the line. Ishmirkad. See, you know what the problem is. Arthur's voice grew cold. This isn't the time to argue about it. 3 clients have suspended cooperation. The company will have problems. Those are the company's problems. You're also one of the company's founders. And yesterday, I was first on the optimization list. He seemed to choke. A moment later, he said, I can cancel that list. The humiliation that has already occurred cannot be undone. He lowered his voice. Vera. Do you really want to calculate everything like this? Yes. I looked at the files I had compiled on my computer. From today, we will calculate everything down to the last penny. On the other end of the line, I heard Mr. Davidson's voice, who seemed to be trying to calm him down. But Arthur suddenly raised his voice. Mr. Davidson. Immediately annul her resignation process. Mr. Davidson struggled to say. Arthur Vance. Vera has already completed the handover. And we don't have a forced retention policy. You didn't reject the resignation in the system yesterday. And it automatically moved to the execution stage. I'm the CEO. But system records and employment contracts exist. That phrase reminded me how many years ago, when the company was just starting, Arthur hated disorder and said, Vera, when the company grows, all processes must be robust enough to withstand any audit. He didn't think that in the end, it would be a well-defined process that would stop him. A thud sounded on the phone. As if he had slammed the table. She's my wife, Mr. Davidson paused for a second. Arthur Vance. Vera's status as an employee, not a wife, when resigning. I held the phone and felt the absurdity and satisfaction simultaneously. He finally said it out loud. She's my wife. So she can be demoted. Sacrificed. Replaced by Kira. And when the company is in crisis, tied back with the status of a husband. Arthur. I said. Silence fell. On the other end of the line. Did you hear what Mr. Davidson said? I'm saying that, in the status of an employee, we act according to the employment contract. In the status of spouses, according to the family code. Arthur's voice cracked. Do you really want to drag the marriage into this? You dragged it in first. I said calmly. When you demanded, as a husband, understanding for Kira. When you decided that I, as a wife, I should cover your back. The marriage has been involved for a long time. Before I hung up, I heard Kira's voice. She seemed to be crying. Arthur. Maybe I should apologize to Vera. I don't want you to. Arthur didn't answer. I hung up. 10 minutes later. Mr. Davidson sent me a photo. On the HR desk was my termination order. Arthur stood nearby. His face was darker than a storm cloud. Mr. Davidson captioned it. Vera. I did everything by the book. I replied, thank you. Keep all records of instructions. He replied. Understood. In the afternoon, rumors began to spread in the company's internal chats. Some said, I deliberately stole clients to get revenge. Some said I was just being dramatic, leveraging my status as the boss's wife. And some said Kira was actually very unhappy, as she had been given such a difficult area of work. I didn't explain anything. Explaining something to anonymous gossips is useless. I only sent official letters to the 3 key clients, reiterating my resignation and disclaimer of any project obligations to Horizon Tech, and added the phrase, if an independent risk assessment is required in the future, I am open to a separate dialogue. I wasn't poaching clients. I was simply removing myself from the line of fire. That evening, Mr. Thompson replied to my email. Vera. Do you have time tomorrow afternoon? Let's talk not about Horizon, but about your future plans. I looked at this message and for the first time, truly felt that. By leaving Arthur, I hadn't fallen into emptiness. I still had my professional reputation, my judgment, and my choice. At 7 p.m., Arthur's mother called. I didn't answer. She sent a voicemail. Vera. What's wrong with you two? Acting like children. What kind of grudges are there between a husband and wife? Arthur said you were too angry this time. Even affecting the company. Come back first. Help him sort out the clients. A woman shouldn't be so stubborn. The most important thing is harmony at home. I listened and saved it. I had heard this countless times over the past 5 years. His mother loved Kira. Saying Kira knew how to be affectionate. Acted like a girl. While I was too businesslike. Too calm. Not like a wife. No. When the company was in trouble, she remembered again that I was Arthur's wife. I replied to her with a message. Dear Mrs. Vance. Regarding company matters. Please contact company management. I will discuss marriage matters with Arthur. She immediately replied, What did you call me? I didn't answer anymore. At 10 p.m. Arthur appeared outside the hotel window. The reception called me and said Mr. Vance was waiting for me. I went to the window and looked down. His car was parked under a streetlight. He himself, leaning against the door, was smoking. He rarely smoked before. I looked at him for a few seconds. Then drew the curtain and told the reception I wasn't expecting anyone. At that moment, I realized he was truly in a panic. But his panic wasn't about losing me. At least, not now. He was panicking because the company was out of control. Clients had suspended cooperation. And Kira couldn't hold her position. He finally understood that I wasn't a position that could be given back in 3 months. I was a person he had personally deleted from the system. Arthur's mother called me from morning until noon. I didn't answer once. In the afternoon, she called from their country house's landline. I picked up. Her first question was, Vera Vance. How long are you going to keep this circus going? I was sitting at a hotel table, reviewing a cooperation project. Mr. Thompson had sent. Mrs. Vance. Is something urgent? This address offended her deeply. You don't even call me mom anymore. Arthur and I aren't divorced yet. But the address can be adjusted depending on the temperature of the relationship. Silence fell on the other end of the line. Mrs. Vance clearly didn't expect such an answer. Suppressing her anger, she said, Come to the country house for dinner tonight. Arthur will be there too. Whatever it is. You need to clarify everything face to face. What kind of spectacle is this? A wife ruining her husband's company. I'm not ruining the company. Clients left. Because of you. How is it not you? Clients suspended cooperation due to a change in the person in charge and risks in the proposal. Mrs. Vance sneered coldly. Don't talk to me in your business terms here. In the end, it's all about you just not being able to accept Kira's return. I looked out the window. Of course. In their eyes, every problem ultimately boiled down to my jealousy of Kira. I wanted to refuse. But after thinking about it, I agreed. Some things are better discussed at a family table than alone. At 7 p.m. I arrived at the Vance country house. Everyone was sitting in the dining room. Mrs. Vance at the head of the table. Arthur to her right. And next to Arthur, Kira. In a light blue dress. Her hair down. Seeing me, she immediately stood up. Vera. I didn't want to come. But Mrs. Vance said it would be best for all of us to talk. I glanced at her. It's good that you came. Her face changed slightly. Mrs. Vance slammed the table. Vera. What's with that? Tony Kira is a guest. A guest who so casually sits next to someone else's husband. Silence fell in the dining room. Arthur frowned. Vera Vance. I placed my bag on the empty chair and sat down. Weren't we going to talk? Let's talk. Mrs. Vance. With a cold face. Said. First, we'll have dinner. I'm not hungry. Arthur intervened. Mom. Let's get to the point first. He looked at me. The company needs you to come back and calm the clients, right? No. Your salary. Position. I'll reinstate everything. The strategic accounts department will be yours again. And Kira, I asked. Kira immediately lowered her head. I can leave. As long as Vera comes back. I didn't mean to take anything. Arthur just thought I needed a chance to start fresh. I interrupted her. Start fresh. Meaning, start with my office. Kira's eyes reddened. Mrs. Vance immediately became indignant. You're older. More experienced. Can't you yield to her? Kira's had it so tough. She's not as assertive and strong as you. She just returned. Arthur just wanted to take care of her a little. What's wrong with that? Nothing. I nodded. Taking care of her isn't bad. But doing it at the expense of my salary. My team. My clients. And my budget. That's bad. Mrs. Vance fell silent. Arthur said. I admit that I didn't handle things in the best way this time. Not in the best way. I took out the printed documents from my bag and placed them in the middle of the table. Or, according to a pre-planned scheme, Mrs. Vance reached for the papers. On the first page was the optimization list. On the second, the client transfer agreement. On the third, Kira's budget adjustment. On the fourth, the request for Kira to move into my office. All approval dates were before that meeting. Arthur's face gradually darkened. Kira clutched her dress. Mrs. Vance wasn't involved in business. But she could read dates. What is this? This is what you call my dramatics, I said. No one spoke in the dining room. I continued. The demotion wasn't a spontaneous decision. The transfer of duties to Kira wasn't a temporary measure either. You planned all of this in advance. You just forgot to notify me. Arthur looked at me. Where did you get these documents? From the system. Which I had access to. His gaze grew cold. You checked corporate files after resigning. All these files were downloaded before my resignation. I looked at him. Arthur Vance. Don't be so quick to label me. Kira suddenly burst into tears. Vera. I truly didn't know this would hurt you so much. Arthur just said you were strong. And even if you temporarily gave up some resources, it wouldn't affect your position. I looked at her. Kira. Don't dump all the responsibility on him. Your signature is also on the client transfer agreement. Her face turned white as a sheet. Mrs. Vance immediately rushed to defend her. She just joined the company. What does she understand? Arthur told her to sign. And she signed. Exactly. I sneered. That's why I don't understand why someone who doesn't even know what she's signing should lead the strategic accounts department. That phrase landed like a slap. The dining room became terrifyingly quiet. Arthur finally said. Enough. He looked at me. His voice was restrained. You were invited here today to solve a problem. Not to interrogate everyone. I met his Chaser. You're mistaken. I placed another document on the table. Today. I came to inform you that I will not be returning to the company. Arthur's pupils narrowed. I continued. Furthermore, I've already contacted a lawyer. The divorce agreement. Division of joint property. Return of funds I invested in the company in the early stages. Calculation of options. And return of money transferred from my personal account for company needs. All of this will be recalculated. Mrs. Vance sharply stood up. Vera Vance. Do you want to destroy Horizon? I'm not destroying it. I looked at Arthur. But the one who decided I was expendable is. Arthur's face was terrible. Do you really want to destroy everything I picked up my bag? Marriage isn't about one side always yielding and the other always hiding behind the bigger picture. Kira. Crying. Said. Vera. Don't be like that. Arthur has been so tired these past few days. It's not that he doesn't value you. He's just stressed by the company. I turned to her. Kira. Your strongest quality is your ability to always portray yourself as a victim in need of care. Her crying stopped for a moment. Unfortunately, I'm not going to take care of you. With that, I stood up and left. Arthur caught up to me and stopped me at the entrance to the house. The night was cold. He looked at me. And in his eyes, for the first time, there was clear exhaustion. Vera. Is divorce really necessary? I didn't answer immediately. For the past 5 years, I had waited for him many times. Waited for him to see how hard things were for me. Waited for him to stand up for me against his mother. Waited for him to refuse Kira's inappropriate requests. Waited for him to at least warn me before I was demoted. But he never did any of those things. Arthur. I said. It's not that you didn't know I would be hurt. You just thought I'd get over it and stay. His face paled. I walked around him and headed to my car. Behind me, his voice cracked. Where are you going? I opened the car door. To live my own life. This time, he didn't run after me. The next day morning, Sarah invited me for a coffee meeting. Sitting at the table, she first looked around, making sure no one was following her. Then took a USB drive from her bag. Vera. I'm not sure if I should give this to you. I didn't take it immediately. What's on it? Budget requests from Kira. Her expense reports. And several versions of client proposals she changed. Sarah pursed her lips. I don't want to take anyone's side. But now the finance department is being dragged into this. She's making us process some entertainment expenses as client retention expenses. But in fact, the objectives don't match. I looked at the USB drive. Did you save these documents according to company regulations? Yes. With exceeding authority, no. All of this went through my review. Only then did I take the USB drive. Sarah. Thank you. But take care of yourself. Don't risk yourself for me. She smiled bitterly. Vera. You used to tell us the same thing. I froze. She quietly added. Many people in the company know you're not causing trouble. People are just afraid to speak. I squeezed my coffee cup and said nothing. I used to think that if I did my job well, Arthur would eventually see it. It turned out many people saw it. It was just that the one who should have seen it first chose not to look. Returning to my temporary office, I opened the USB drive. Kira's proposals were even worse than I thought. She didn't just change prices. She copied a large part of an old proposal that was specifically designed last year for Mr. Thompson's company. Changed the cover, a couple of figures, and gave it to another client. The problem was that the old proposal contained many individual customizations. Clients had different industries, different system interfaces, different risk management, logic. Simply copying it meant guaranteeing a disaster. I opened both proposals side by side and began highlighting all the differences in red. At 2 p.m., Arthur sent a message. Did you take company documents? I sneered at this accusatory phrase. He was always like this, first defending Kira, then suspecting me. I replied. All documents I possess were obtained legally and relate exclusively to my projects. Rights and boundaries of responsibility. He immediately replied, don't take things to extremes. I dialed his number. He answered instantly. Vera, Vance, Arthur. I'm asking you. Did Kira use an old proposal? Silence fell on the other end of the line. She used departmental materials. Using and copying are different things. She's just starting. She can't do everything perfectly on the first try. Can she? So you want me to help her fix everything again? He was flustered. After a few seconds, he said. This project is very important. Help her privately refine the proposal. You don't even have to put your name on it. I almost laughed. You don't even have to put your name on it. How easily he said that. Over the past 5 years, I had corrected many of his mistakes. Investors suddenly changed requirements. He asked me to negotiate. The development team missed deadlines. He asked me to calm clients. Kira unexpectedly appeared at his mother's birthday. I saved the situation. Now Kira couldn't create a proposal. And he again wanted me to anonymously fix everything. On what grounds, I asked. Arthur's voice grew harsh. On the grounds that half of your hard work is in this company. Half of my hard work is in this company. Is that why you put me on the optimization list? I already said I handled things incorrectly that time. Incorrectly isn't an apology. Silence fell on the other end of the line again. He seemed completely unaccustomed to me breaking everything down so literally and clearly. Before, all he had to say was, "I'm tired." And I would stop. He would say, "Don't make a scene." And I would back down. Now I wasn't backing down. And he found me alien. Arthur. Since my resignation, I no longer bear any unauthorized responsibility for Horizon Tech. You just want to watch the company go under. I'm watching you take responsibility for your decisions. His breathing grew heavy. What do you want in the end? A divorce. After these words, complete silence fell on the other end of the line. After a long time, he said, "Don't threaten me with divorce. It's not a threat." I looked at the evidence gathered on my desk. It's a notification. I hung up. Half an hour later, Kira sent an email. She didn't send it to me personally, but copied Arthur, HR, and several key employees in the Strategic Accounts Department. The subject line regarding Ms. Vance's interference in work processes after resignation. The content was vaguely written. She wrote that even though I had resigned, I continued to influence internal company affairs through old clients, which caused immense pressure on the new team. She was ready to accept all misunderstandings and hoped that I would not harm the company's interests due to personal emotions. After this email, the company's internal chats exploded again. Kira was smart. She portrayed herself as an aggrieved newcomer, and me as an aggrieved ex who couldn't come to terms with leaving. If I remained silent, the dirt would stick to me. If I replied, she would continue to cry. After reading the email, I replied, attaching 4 files. First, letters from clients suspending cooperation. Second, comparison of proposals, before and after Kira's changes. Third, analysis of overlap with the old proposal. Fourth, my termination order and statement of responsibility boundaries. The email text was short. Belle. Please clarify which of the above project risks was caused by my interference after resignation. After sending the email, no one replied for 30 minutes. 20 minutes later, Peter wrote Vera. The whole team sees it. Followed by Paul, she ran crying into Arthur Vance's office. I closed my email and didn't look again. This was no longer my battle. At least not one where I had to be on the front lines. But that evening, Mr. Thompson called me. Vera. Is now a good time? Yes. I've heard rumors that internally at Horizon, you're being portrayed as someone who interferes with projects. Rumors. He sneered. Arthur Vance personally came to explain to me today, saying that Kira lacks experience, but the company will arrange for you to consult her behind the scenes. My gaze grew cold. I didn't agree to that. I figured as much. Mr. Thompson's tone became serious. That's why I wanted to ask. If you work as an independent consultant, would you undertake an external risk assessment? I didn't answer immediately. This was a chance, but also a test of boundaries. I couldn't directly poach clients from my former company during this sensitive post-resignation period. But I could conduct an independent assessment without touching Horizon's internal data, based only on the client's needs. We can discuss it, I said. But on the condition that it doesn't involve existing contracts with Horizon and all terms are formally documented. Mr. Thompson laughed. Now that's the Vera I know. Hanging up the phone, I looked at the darkening sky outside the window. My phone lit up again. A message from Arthur. Are you really going to consult Mr. Thompson? I replied. Within the bounds of the law. That's my freedom. He replied quickly. You wouldn't have done that before. I looked at that phrase and quietly exhaled. I wouldn't have done it before. Before. Vera would first think. Is this hard for him? The current Vera first thinks. Should I? That was the difference. I wasn't planning to attend the closed industry conference. Mr. Thompson sent the invitation. On the phone. He said. Let's talk not about Horizon. But about industry risks. Vera. You shouldn't disappear from this field because of one failed relationship. That phrase made me silent for a long time. For the past 5 years. I had so closely associated myself with Horizon Tech that outsiders, speaking of me, always said, Vance's wife is very capable. Rarely did anyone call me simply Vera Vance. So that day, I put on a sharp black suit and drove to the hotel where the conference was held. I didn't sit at the main table but took a seat in the back rows. Listening, as several clients discussed budget cuts and updating supply systems for the second half of the year. Half an hour later, Arthur entered the hall with Kira. Kira was dressed very formally today. In a light gray suit dress. With a Horizon Tech badge on her chest. She immediately saw me. And her face froze. Arthur also saw me. His step slowed for a moment. But he quickly recovered. When the moderator introduced Horizon Tech, Arthur went on stage. He said that the company had recently undergone an organizational overhaul. Implemented younger and more flexible project coordination mechanisms. And would offer clients more flexible service in the future. Kira sat in the front row. Humbly lowering her head. Like an acknowledged new star. I sat in the back rows. Expressionless. Everything went smoothly until the Q&A session. Mr. Thompson raised his hand. Arthur Vance. I'd like to clarify who is currently leading the strategic accounts department in your company. Arthur paused for half a second. Kira Bell is handling coordination. I am personally overseeing the process. Mr. Thompson nodded. And Vera Vance's silence suddenly fell in the hall. Arthur looked at me. Kira also turned around. Panic flashed in her eyes. Arthur said. Vera Vance has temporarily taken a break for personal reasons. I picked up the microphone from the table. Allow me to clarify. I haven't temporarily taken a break. I officially resigned. After these words, a whisper spread through the hall. Arthur's face changed. Kira immediately stood up. Her voice was soft and reproving. Vera. Today is an industry conference. Isn't it better not to discuss internal company matters? I looked at her. I merely clarified a fact. Mr. Thompson interjected. This is not a personal matter for the client. A change in project lead is a risk factor. Another client also added. We used to only negotiate with Horizon through Vera. A sudden change indeed requires an explanation. Kira's face grew paler. She managed a strained smile. Dear colleagues. Don't worry. Vera left all the materials. And I am making every effort to get up to speed. Horizon Tech is not a one-person company. It won't stop working because one person leaves. The words were pretty. But not everyone accepted them. Mr. Thompson asked her Ms. Bell. In the proposal for our second phase, you reduced the service cost to less than X. Please tell me. Who will cover the service costs? For the next 3 years, Kira looked at Arthur. Arthur was about to answer. But Mr. Thompson added, I'm asking Ms. Bell. Since she's the coordinator. She should know this. The smile on Kira's face faltered. She flipped through her papers and, uncertainly said. We can refine this part later. So you don't know. The hall fell silent. Kira's eyes immediately reddened. She looked at me. As if I had deeply hurt her. Vera. Say. They all only acknowledge you. I'm really trying my best. Why can't you give me some time? Before I could say anything, a female client sitting next to me said, Ms. Bell. A client isn't a school teacher. We don't have an obligation to give you time for mistakes. These words resonated more powerfully than if I had said them. Kira completely froze. Arthur stood on stage. As face terrible. He looked at me, as if expecting me to intervene and smooth things over. Before, in such a situation, I would definitely have stood up. I would have steered the conversation in a constructive direction, saved Horizon Tech's reputation, and given Arthur a way out. But today, I simply put down the microphone. I wasn't saving the situation anymore. Arthur had to extricate himself. Regarding project details, we will discuss them individually after the conference. Mr. Thompson didn't press him further. Only indifferently said, Arthur Vance. We didn't buy the Horizon Tech brand, but the results Vera Vance delivered. After these words, all eyes in the hall turned to me. Kira's tears finally streamed down her cheeks, and Arthur's face gradually lost color. I stood up. Mr. Thompson, thank you for your trust. But I have already left Horizon Tech and cannot and will not make any promises on behalf of the company. I looked at everyone present. If anyone needs independent consulting services, you can contact me within legal boundaries. If it concerns current Horizon Tech projects, please contact their team directly. With that, I picked up my bag and left. Without attacks. Without accusations. But everyone understood. I and Horizon Tech now had different paths. At the hotel exit, Arthur caught up to me. Vera Vance. I stopped on the steps. He quickly approached me. His breathing was labored. Did you really want to publicly humiliate me today? I looked at him. Which of my words was a lie? He fell silent. I continued. You said I was temporarily taking a break. I corrected that I officially resigned. You appointed Kira responsible. The client asked her a question. Arthur. Humiliation isn't something others inflict on you. It's something you arrange for yourself. In his eyes, there was anger and panic. You knew Kira couldn't handle such a scene. Then why did you put her there? He was silent. He couldn't answer that question. Because the answer was simple. He wanted to elevate her. But he also wanted me to cover her. He needed both face for Kira and my competencies. But in this world, there are no such cheap deals. Kira ran out of the hotel doors. Her eyes red. Arthur. I must have disgraced you. Arthur instinctively turned and supported her. This movement was so practiced, so habitual, that my last doubts vanished. I looked at them and suddenly laughed. Arthur, hearing the laughter, turned around. What are you laughing at? I'm laughing at how I didn't see it before. His face changed. I'm saying that you know perfectly well how to protect someone. It's just that person isn't me. Kira's crying stopped. Arthur seemed frozen in place by these words. I didn't look at them anymore. A car pulled up. I got in. Before closing the door, Arthur suddenly grabbed it. Vera. Let's talk. I looked at his hand. Arthur Vance. Let's not create an even uglier scene in front of clients. His fingers froze. I gently closed the door. As the car pulled away, I saw in the rearview mirror how Kira stood next to Arthur, holding his sleeve. And he watched my car. The belated gaze no longer mattered. After that day, Arthur actively sought to meet with me. First, he called. I didn't answer. Then he emailed. He offered a new consulting agreement for me, as an external specialist, to help stabilize clients. Any fee. I replied with one phrase, I do not accept proposals related to Horizon Tech. Then he messaged, saying that marriage wasn't a company, it couldn't be terminated like an employment contract. I didn't answer. Finally, he appeared at the entrance of the apartment building where I was renting. It was a temporary apartment near the city center with good security. I was going down to pick up a package when I saw him by his car. He had lost weight. There were dark circles under his eyes. Seeing me, he immediately approached. Vera. I stopped at the door, hugging the box. How did you know where I live? He didn't answer. I frowned. Arthur. Were you following me? I was just worried about you. Worry and tracking your location are different things. He paused. Mom just asked the driver to follow you once. I sneered coldly. Great. Very much your family style. A flicker of embarrassment crossed his face. I already talked to her. You talk to her every time. I hugged the box tighter. But every time, I'm the one who's humiliated. He looked at me. His voice became quieter. Vera. I know you've been deeply hurt this time. I was silent. This was the first time he admitted I had been hurt. But it was too late. He continued. I've been thinking a lot these past few days. The optimization list. Yes. I shouldn't have done that without telling you. And with Kira. Everything was too rushed. Only rushed. He pursed his lips. You're still avoiding the main point. Red veins appeared in Arthur's eyes. What do you want me to say? Say I was wrong. Okay. I was wrong. There was both defeat and irritation in his voice. As if he was performing a task beyond his abilities. I looked at him. What were you wrong about? He froze. This question was harder for him than any client negotiation. After a long time, he said, I shouldn't have included your name on that list. Not enough. I shouldn't have given Kira your clients. Still not enough. He finally frowned. Vera Vance. What do you want from me? I suddenly felt a strong weariness. Arthur. See. It's not that you don't know how to apologize. You just don't understand what. For. His face darkened. You were wrong to treat me as your backup plan. You can care for Kira. You can compensate her for things. You can give her chances. But you can't automatically assume that I will pay for your compensation. His expression froze. I didn't treat you as a backup plan. You did. I looked him in the eyes. Kira can't handle clients. You call me. The company has problems. You call me. Your mother insults me at the dinner table. You stay silent. Now. With the marriage on the verge of collapse. You say you know how much I've been hurt. You wait until the situation becomes uncontrollable every time. And only then. Do you remember me? Arthur's throat constricted. I just thought that between us, we didn't need to calculate everything so meticulously. Yes. I nodded. Because there's no need to calculate. My investments can be ignored. Because there's no need to calculate. My hurts can be overlooked. Because there's no need to calculate. My place can be given to someone else first. It doesn't matter. Because in 3 months, it can be given back. His face turned absolutely white. I turned to leave. He grabbed the box. Don't go. I stopped. Let go. He didn't let go. Today is our wedding anniversary. I froze for a moment. I had actually forgotten. May 18th. The day we got married. Before. Every year on this day. I would book a restaurant in advance. Prepare a gift. And pretending not to care. Ask if he was free. He was always busy. Last year. On our anniversary. He accompanied Kira to the hospital for a checkup. The reason she had just returned to the country and had no relatives. That day. I ate a cold steak alone. Arthur quietly said. I booked a table at your favorite restaurant. Let's go have dinner. Okay. I looked at him and suddenly asked. Do you know that I don't eat steak at that restaurant anymore? He froze. I haven't eaten it for 3 years. After I ended up in the hospital with bleeding. His hand slowly released the box. He didn't know. Of course. He didn't know. All these years. He remembered that Kira was allergic to pollen. That she was afraid of the dark. That she didn't drink cold water. But he didn't remember that I had a bad stomach. That I didn't eat steak. That at some point, I stopped waiting for our anniversary. At that moment, a cab pulled up to the curb. Kira got out. She saw us. Her steps slowed. And tears immediately welled up in her eyes. Arthur. Arthur turned around. Frowning. How did you get here? Kira came closer. Her voice trembled. Mrs. Vance said you were here. I didn't want to disturb you. But there are problems at the company again. Mr. Thompson officially sent a letter terminating intentions. The board of directors demands that you return immediately. She looked at me. Vera. I know you hate me. But Horizon is really on the brink. Can you help him just once? Just once I looked at her. She cried beautifully. And spoke beautiful words. But every time. She appeared at the exact moment Arthur was on the verge of confronting me face to face. Kira. Do you really want me to help him? I asked. She froze. If I return, the strategic accounts department will be mine again. Clients will work with me. Your special budget will be audited. And you will have to take responsibility for proposals signed with errors. Are you sure? Her face instantly paled. Arthur also looked at her. Kira's lips moved. I was just worried about the company. No. I held the box. My voice was calm. You're worried that if I return, you'll be nobody again. Kira's tears stopped. This time, she couldn't immediately cry. Arthur's gaze changed. He finally saw what he had preferred to ignore before. Kira frantically grabbed his sleeve. Arthur. I didn't. I took a document from my bag and handed it to Arthur. He instinctively took it. On the cover was written, Marriage Dissolution Agreement. His hand froze. Vera Vance. You said marriage isn't a company. And it can't be terminated like an employment contract. I looked at him. Here. Let's go through the marriage dissolution procedure. Kira stood nearby. Her face was terrible. Arthur looked at those words as a final verdict. I won't sign. You will. I said. If not today. Then later. I walked around them and entered the apartment building. This time, Arthur didn't stop me. The elevator doors closed. I saw him lower his head and look at the agreement. Kira stood nearby, and for the first time didn't dare to touch him. I knew he was finally in a panic. But the person he was panicking over wouldn't come back. Arthur contacted me again through an official email. The subject was very polite. Invitation to an informational meeting. Regarding Horizon Tech Project. Responsibilities. The content basically stated that the company had recently faced difficulties due to external misunderstandings. And he hoped that I, as the former head of the Strategic Accounts Department, I would participate in an internal meeting to clarify the facts of the handover and stabilize team morale. Reading this, I laughed. This letter, though it looked like an invitation, I was actually an attempt to make me vouch for them. If I just stood in that conference room and said that the handover went smoothly and the clients were just temporarily pausing, Arthur would be able to stabilize the situation. But why should I? I replied. I can attend. But I will only state facts and will not bear any subsequent responsibility for Horizon Tech. 5 minutes later. He replied. Okay. I knew he had no choice now. The meeting was scheduled for Friday afternoon in the same executive conference room. When I walked in, it was packed. In addition to the top executives, key employees from strategic accounts, finance, HR, and the implementation team were present. Kira sat in the front row. Looking drawn, Arthur stood before the assembled group. Seeing me, his gaze briefly froze. I didn't sit in the seat offered to me. I sat in an empty chair by the door so I could leave at any moment. Arthur began to speak. Lately, the company has experienced some difficulties. External parties have misinterpreted our internal changes. Today, We have invited Vera to clarify the facts. He looked at me. Vera. Say a few words. I stood up and took the remote. Okay. On the large screen appeared an unplanned slide. Not about the company, but the optimization list. A quiet murmur went through the room. Arthur's face changed. Vera Vance. I didn't look at him, since we're talking about facts. Let's start with them. I pointed to the list. This is the official notification I received on the day of my resignation. My name is on the first line. Approved by Arthur Vance. Copy to HR. The CFO. And the board of directors. Kira's face paled. Second slide. Client transfer agreement. This is an agreement created on Kira's third day at the company. It states that 3 of my strategic clients are to be gradually transferred to Kira Bell's project group within 3 months. Someone quietly said. So it's true. Third slide. Budget adjustment. This is Kira's special budget of $80. Ling. Source project budget for the Strategic Accounts Department. Sarah from Finance lowered her head. I didn't mention her name. Only said. If these funds had been transferred, it would have directly affected the quality of project implementation in the summer quarter. Arthur finally couldn't bear it. Enough. These are internal management documents. They shouldn't be displayed at a general meeting. I looked at him. Then why did you invite me? So I could say this was all a misunderstanding. His face was grim. I switched to the next slide. Kira's altered proposal appeared on the screen. This is the version of the commercial proposal. After Kira took over, she changed the phased implementation to a single package, and reduced the service cost to a level that doesn't cover the cost. The head of the implementation department couldn't help but say. We objected to this at the time. But Ms. Bell said Arthur Vance approved it. Everyone looked at Arthur. Kira hastily stood up. I didn't mean to. I just wanted to achieve results as quickly as possible so everyone would acknowledge me. I looked at her. The desire to achieve results does not give you the right to risk client money for practice. Her eyes filled with tears again. Vera. Why are you pressuring me so much? I admit, I'm not as good as you. But I had no ill intentions. After you left, everyone compares me to you. I'm also under immense pressure. After these words, some employees who didn't know the full truth softened. She knew how to present her incompetence as harassment. I switched to the next slide. It was her SMS to me. Arthur says that only with me can he not be a CEO all the time. Silence fell in the hall. Kira's crying caught in her throat. Arthur also froze. I didn't add anything. Just asked. Is this also work pressure? Kira's lips trembled. I just said the wrong thing. You didn't say the wrong thing to me. My voice was quiet. You perfectly understood that you needed more than just my position. No one in the hall dared to make a sound. I continued. But today, I'm not here to discuss personal relationships. I'm here to clarify 3 points. I raised my finger. First, before resigning, I completed all legal handover procedures. There was no malicious sabotage. Second, clients suspended cooperation due to a change in the person in charge. Risks in proposals. And unclear responsibility for implementation. Not because of my interference after resignation. Third, as of the effective date of my resignation, I no longer represent Horizon Tech and will not bear responsibility for any projects to which I have not agreed. With that, I displayed the final slide. This was my termination order as recorded in the HR system and the statement of responsibility boundaries. Mr. Davidson stood up. His voice trembled slightly but was clear. I can confirm that all of Vera's resignation procedures were carried out in accordance with regulations. Oh. Handover documents were provided in full. 3 days later, Arthur Vance demanded to recall the process. But at that point, unilateral recall was no longer possible. Arthur looked at him sharply. Mr. Davidson paled, but did not sit down. Peter also stood up. I confirmed that before resigning. Vera archived all client data. Ms. Bell subsequently demanded that we provide access to personal notes. We refused. Paul followed suit. I also confirm. On everyone in the room. Those who had previously lowered their heads began to raise them. Arthur stood before them. His face grew more and more terrible. Kira sat in her chair, tears streaming. But no one comforted her anymore. I turned off the presentation. Arthur Vance. I have presented the facts. He looked at me. His voice was choked. Are you happy? I looked at him. Do you still think I did this for satisfaction? He was silent. Arthur. I didn't come here to get revenge on you. I came to return the responsibility you tried to pin on me. I picked up my bag. As of today, nothing connects me and Horizon Tech. I turned and walked towards the exit. Behind me, Arthur suddenly said, Vera Vance. Do you really want to cut everything off like this? I stopped. Not turning around. And 5 years of marriage too. Silence fell in the room. I turned and looked at him. Arthur. You were the first to put our 5 years of marriage on the optimization list. His face instantly turned white as death. I didn't linger any longer. Leaving the conference room, I heard the voice of a board member. Arthur Vance. The board of directors will require a written explanation from you regarding this reorganization. The door closed behind me. I stood in the hallway and took a deep breath. This time, I didn't get applause. But I reclaimed my good name. And that was more important than applause. The appointment at the courthouse was for the following Monday. I set the time. Arthur took a long time to confirm. Only on Sunday evening did he send a message, I'll be there tomorrow. I looked at it for a long time and replied with only one word. Okay. Nothing more. On Monday morning, I arrived before him. Several young couples stood at the courthouse doors, holding hands, with nervous and happy smiles on their faces. I looked at them and suddenly remembered how Arthur and I stood at this entrance 5 years ago. He held my hand then and said, Vera. No matter how difficult things get with the company, we'll get through it together. I believed him. Later, I realized that together meant I would carry most of the burden. Exactly at 9 a.m. Arthur arrived. He was in a black suit, as if going to a board meeting. Seeing me, he slowed his pace. Been waiting long? No. I handed him the folder of documents. Let's go. He didn't take it. Vera. Can we talk first? I looked at the queue. We've talked many times already. Last night, I reviewed all those records of early investments you collected. His voice was slightly hoarse. I only then realized that the money from the sale of your apartment, which you invested in the company, was never fully processed as a refund. Why didn't you remind me? I looked at him. I did remind you. He froze. After the investment round from the fund, I sent you an email. You replied that, between a husband and wife, there's no need to rush with accounts. His face paled. He remembered. At that time, the company was just starting to gain momentum. His mother wanted to move into a bigger house. Arthur said cash was tight and asked me to wait a little longer. I waited. That little longer stretched into years. Arthur quietly said, I'll return everything according to the agreement. Does everything between us really have to come down to agreements? I looked at him and suddenly realized that this question no longer held weight. Arthur. Agreements don't ruin relationships. People who don't respect agreements do. He was silent. His phone rang. He looked at the screen. It was his mother. He didn't answer. Immediately after, Kira called. He didn't answer again. You can answer, I said. No need. But the phone kept ringing. Finally, he irritably put it on speaker. Kira's crying immediately sounded. Arthur. People from the board of directors came to me. They say I need to give testimony about the budget and proposals. Can you come back? I really don't know what to do. Arthur closed his eyes. Cooperate with them as they demand. Kira fralse. But you promised to protect me. I saw Arthur's fingers clench into a fist. On the other end of the line, Kira seemed to completely panic. Arthur. I admit I wanted to prove my worth. And I admit I didn't like Vera. But you told me to sign all these documents yourself. You can't put all the blame on me now. Arthur sharply opened his eyes. Kira. Crying. Continued. I came back because you said you'd give me a place. You said Vera was strong and wouldn't pay attention to it. You said she was your wife and would eventually cover for you. People bustled at the courthouse entrance. Arthur stood. And his face gradually turned gray. Kira was still sobbing. Arthur. I'm not mean. I'm just scared. I'm scared I'll have nothing left. Scared, you'll eventually go back to her. That's why I wanted to take her place. Wanted everyone to acknowledge me. Arthur hung up. He seemed forced to finally hear the truth. But I had heard this truth a long time ago. He looked at me. A flicker of panic crossed his eyes. Vera. Let's go inside. I interrupted him. His voice cracked. I didn't know she thought that. You did know. I looked at him. You just liked that she needed you. And you liked that I corrected your mistakes. He moved his lips. But in the end, couldn't object. We entered the hall. At the window, the clerk checked the documents and asked if our decision was voluntary. I said, voluntary. Arthur didn't answer immediately. The clerk looked up at him. He held a pen. Veins bulged on the back of his hand. At that moment, his phone vibrated again. This time, the board of directors. He didn't answer. The clerk asked again. Sir, is your decision to divorce voluntary? Arthur looked at me. At that moment, in his eyes, was what I had waited for many years. Regret. Pain. Unwillingness to let go. But it was too late. I calmly looked at him. Arthur. Don't make me wait for you again. His eyes reddened. After a long time, he quietly said, voluntary. The procedure went faster than I thought. When I received the divorce certificate, the sun was shining directly into the window. The red booklet was light. Too light to end a 5-year marriage. But it ended it. Leaving the courthouse, Arthur walked behind me. Vera. I stopped. His voice was quiet. If I hadn't hired Kira back then, everything between us would have been different. I thought. Maybe it would have happened later. He froze. The problem was never just Kira. I said. The problem is that you always thought I wouldn't leave. A breeze blew and ruffled my hair. Arthur, as before, raised his hand to smooth it. I stepped back. His hand froze in the air. Don't do that anymore, I said. He slowly lowered his hand. What will you do next? He couldn't finish the question. I finished it for him. I'll be fine. This wasn't to comfort it. It was for me. A car pulled up. Before getting in, Arthur suddenly asked, can I still call you? I looked at him. For work. No need. For personal matters. Even less so. He had nothing to say. The car door closed. As the car pulled away, I saw in the rearview mirror how he stood at the courthouse entrance, clutching the divorce certificate in his hand, as if he had finally lost what he thought would never leave. I didn't cry. I just changed his name in my phone from Arthur to his full name, and then removed him from my favorites. The first month after the divorce, I was so busy that I barely had time to look back. Mr. Thompson recommended 2 companies to me as an independent risk consultant. I didn't rush to open my own firm but first created a personal consulting office. The name Vera Consulting. From my name and from the word Vera, meaning truth, which is the foundation of any reliable business relationship. On the day of signing the first independent contract, the Conference room was small, without fancy glass walls like at Horizon Tech, and without a crowd of subordinates. But I sat at the head of the table and felt more at peace than ever before. Turning the contract to the last page, the client asked, "Vera, are you sure you only want to be a consultant and not build a team again?" I smiled. "I'll consider it in the future. But for now, I want to move at my own pace." The client nodded. "Your pace is exactly what attracts us." I signed. Vera Vance. Not Ms. Vance. Not former head of Horizon Tech. Just Vera Vance. That same afternoon, Mr. Davidson texted me. He had resigned from Horizon Tech. Sarah also submitted her resignation. Peter and Paul hadn't left yet, but both applied for transfers from projects related to Kira. An internal audit at Horizon Tech revealed numerous discrepancies in Kira's budget, and her mistakes in proposals led to the termination of intentions for major projects. The board of directors demanded that Arthur bear management responsibility. Kira resigned. Before leaving, she wrote a long message in the general chat, saying she just wanted to prove herself. That Vera Vance was too overbearing and didn't give her room to breathe. That Arthur had given her hope, but ultimately didn't protect her. No one replied. In the adult world, crying loudly is not enough to have your debts forgiven. Arthur was temporarily suspended by the board of directors from approving certain projects. The company continued to operate, but it was no longer his sole empire. When I heard this news, I didn't feel any particular emotion. I didn't want to see him fall. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't being dragged into that mess anymore. That evening, I returned to my new office. Outside the window, the sunset stretched, bathing the desk in warm light. I had just opened my computer when I received an email from Arthur. The subject was just one word: sorry. I opened the email. It was long. He wrote that he had finally reviewed all the early documents and only now understood how much money I had invested in Horizon Tech. How many risks I had prevented. How much pressure I had endured. He wrote that, when the board of directors interrogated him, he was for the first time in the role of the accused, and only then understood what I had gone through. He wrote that on the day Kira resigned, he didn't see her off. He wrote that he drove past our old house and saw that the entryway was empty. And only then did he understand that that house wasn't held up by its walls. At the end, he wrote, "Vera, I'm not asking you to come back. I just want to tell you personally that I was truly wrong." I read the email and archived it. I didn't reply. Not out of hatred, but because it was no longer necessary. Some apologies are needed to heal old wounds. But my wounds had already healed, and I didn't want to open them again. At 8 p.m., I received an SMS from an unknown number. "Vera, I'm leaving this city. I used to envy you a lot and was very afraid of you. Now I understand that the place I took, I couldn't keep. I'm sorry." I glanced at it and deleted it. Kira's apologies weren't needed either. At 9 p.m., my work chat became lively. Mr. Davidson sent a photo. He and Sarah were sitting in a restaurant, both smiling. Paul wrote in the chat, "Vera, today, I refuse to take the blame for someone else." "That was awesome." Peter replied, "Congratulations. You finally graduated." I looked at the screen and couldn't help but smile. It turns out that when one person sets their boundaries, those around them gradually learn to stand tall too. This was more satisfying than any revenge. Half a month later, at an industry conference, I saw Arthur again. He sat in the hall, much thinner. I, as the head of Vera Consulting, went on stage to sign a contract with a client. When the spotlights shone on me, I suddenly remembered how long ago Arthur had promised to put me in the brightest spot. It turned out that this spot didn't need to be given by anyone. I could reach it myself. After the signing, as applause filled the room, I descended from the stage. Arthur waited for me at the end of the hallway. He didn't come close. just watched from a few steps away. Vera. I stopped. In his hands was some document. The money you invested in the company. I've transferred, according to the lawyer's calculations. The options will also be paid out as agreed. Thank you. That's what you deserve. I nodded. He looked at me. As if he wanted to say many things. But in the end, only said. You look very good right now. Yes. I didn't deny it. He smiled bitterly. I always thought you couldn't manage without Horizon. And without me. I used to think so too. I said calmly. His eyes reddened. And now, I know that a person, having left the wrong place, begins to look more like themselves. At the end of the hallway, someone called me. Vera. The client is waiting for you. I looked at Arthur. I need to go. He nodded. But didn't move. I walked past him. This time, he didn't grab my hand or call out. Behind me, I heard his very quiet phrase. Vera Vance. I wish you all the best in the future. My step slowed for a moment. I didn't turn around. And I wish you learn to respect others. That was my last word to him. Not a blessing. But a final settlement. A few months later. Great things start small. Vera Consulting moved into a new office. Small, but with excellent lighting. By the window, I placed a potted ficus. Very similar to the one that was in my old office. Paul, who came to visit, pointed at it and said, Vera. It's so sturdy. I smiled. Yes. It can live in a new place too. He didn't understand the hidden meaning of my words. Just nodded seriously. Of course. Everything you nurture thrives. I looked at the new green leaf and suddenly felt a lightness in my soul. For many years, I was constantly covering for someone. Covering Arthur from company risks. Covering cracks in his family's reputation. Covering Kira's incompetence. Covering the parts of the marriage that had long rotted. Later, I realized that you can't always be someone's backup plan. If you serve as an emergency exit for too long, you yourself won't have a path left. Now, I wasn't Arthur's bigger picture, and I wasn't a life raft for anyone. I was Vera Vance. I walked forward and didn't look back.